Alright, I'm just going to wrap this. Okay, so I've just watched a film. The new film out called Champions with Zendaya in it. First of all, about 3 stars. 3 out of 5. Okay, here's why I think it's 3 out of 5. I've spoken to someone, they said it was 4 out of 5. Here's my arguments for it being a 3 out of 5, but not a 4 or a 5 out of 5. Okay, so, first problem, there is oh, by the way, spoilers. Like, I'm going to spoil every film I review here, so spoilers. First problem is there are constant flashbacks and then cuts forward. So the first one I believe was 18 years ago. There's a couple from 13 years ago. There's one from 8 years ago. There's one from midnight. But there's somewhere probably I personally say between 6 and 11 flashbacks, which from my point of view, and they're not short flashbacks either. There's one that is maybe like a minute long, which is very confusing because it flashes forward and back to the same, to like a similar location, like a hotel bow times I think it was, which is very confusing. If you have to flash back that many times, tell the story from the fucking beginning, right? Like, there is no need for you to just all the time. It makes for a confusing dialogue. Unless you're giving it like, you're not giving it like a Tarantino chapter. You're not telling it like, in a weird way that Tenet would tell it. You're just, I feel like it's just confusing for the sake of trying to be smart. I don't think it worked. I think it worked a few times. Like, there were a few, I'm not going to directly spoil it, but there were a few points where, like, it had to flash back to give you some information for the future that was kind of, like, devastating or big or, like, changes the state of play or whatever. State of play. But I thought it was unnecessary. Outside of that, I enjoyed the story. These are the parts that I enjoyed the story. The character development was good, and I liked that every character got their own fair amount of expose in the film. Like, you sort of root for one person, then another person, then another person. You don't like this person, you like that person, then it all switches around on each other. And I really like that because everyone shares a very good limelight. It's basically made up of 3 main cast members. There's some sort of recurring characters around the side, but it is mostly the main 3. There's a lot of themes in there as well. So you've got like your romance angle, the sport and sort of drive angle, sort of determination angle. There's a family angle. I would say the biggest angle, and this is probably my biggest problem with the film, is the like sex appeal angle. Don't have a problem with sex appeal, but after listening to the interview with Henry Cavill, where he basically says that he doesn't think that it really adds anything to a film, sex or nudity, I've begun to think along the same sort of tracks, and I don't think that putting nudity or sex in a film can or should try to replace substance in a film. It doesn't work. Main example for this that I will continue to use, Iron Claw. When Zac Efron meets Lily James, right, they get along, the relationship builds, they like each other, they go on a date, and then they go to a truck, right? And you know what's happening in the truck? It's very obvious happening in the truck. You see a little bit of kissing, that's it. Then later on in the story, there's children, stuff like that, right? Don't see any sex because it's not needed. It is replaced, it is instead substance with a good story and good character, right? Adding sex to that film wouldn't make any difference to Iron Claw, right? However, if you took the sex and the I don't mind sexual references so much, but if you take the sex stuff away from Champions, there's not actually a lot to drive the story, the plot along, besides Zendaya being, oh, sexy, right. Brings me on to my third problem with the film. Slow motion, and I've said it once and I'll say it again, using pretty shots doesn't make a good film, okay? Your film might look nice, doesn't make it a good film. Prime example of this is Lady Bird. Yes, Lady Bird. Lady Bird looks nice, it is a shocking film. Awful, there's a whole different video for that. But that is my case in point. In Champions, they incessantly use, and once I noticed it, I couldn't stop noticing it. All the time they are using this slow motion capture, which I don't understand why. There's no need for it. It doesn't add anything. All it does is string out 3 minutes of content over 10. Like the ending, oh my, it is just slow. It is just slowed down to the point where you kind of lose the tenacity, or the intensity rather, of the film. You lose it because it's strung out. And then they play choir music through some of it, and through some of it like house, like, but it's always the same bit of music, and it's just random choir music but they play it over the slow motion. So you've got something going, and then you've got something in the background. The pacing, and it makes the pacing feel weird, and it drags you from the intensity while trying to pull you back into the intensity. Also, normally in a film, music would signify meaning. You know, I'm trying to think. I'm having like the Lion King, when he gets like thrown, or when his dad falls. I've never seen the Lion King, but there's big bits of music. Like Titanic has big bits of music. Interstellar, should have just gone with that one. Big bits of music to signify important things happen in the film. This just plays music, and then 2 minutes later something big happens. It doesn't the music, the start of the music editing doesn't signify anything happening in the film for a good while until something else happens. So just play it when the thing happens and it will have more power and effect. But yeah, they do it at the same time as the slow motion, and it makes the pacing and how you're supposed to feel very weird. Another problem, I thought it was strange that they chose this like weird. I don't even know. So you have humor films, comedy films, horror films, thrillers. I couldn't really understand what the tone they were trying to set was, because at the start of the film it's kind of funny. The three of them are all sort of more involved with each other. And there's some funny moments in that. There's a particularly funny scene in the hotel. I know I was enjoying it at this point at the start of the film, when they hadn't overused the same techniques over and over and over again, instead of just coming up with a better narrative. But it just, by the end I was very confused as to what the tone was. I suppose you're supposed to choose who you're rooting for on your own, but I found that confusing as well. There wasn't really like an outstanding goodie or a bad guy, which I know doesn't occur in every film, but I suppose it's up to audience interpretation, individual, viewings or whatever, but I just found it confusing. But yeah, no, top point, so my big problems, the shots don't make it nice, the slow motion was weird, music was just, I found it was out of place and signified nothing. Pros, acting was good. Acting was very good. I thought Zendaya, actually, I didn't think Zendaya was that good. She was good. I think she's the wrong type cast for a strong female, like, I'm the boss, I wear the pants. I just give it a few more years, age her up a little bit more. She doesn't give me the same, she doesn't give me the, obviously it's different, but to reference it again, the dad in Ironclaw, he's the real driving force of the family. She doesn't give me that, no, I'm going to push you to do this and you're just going to, I'm the coach and whatever. It just didn't really feel like a right, but she acted fine in it. Definitely the weakest of the three. The other two gentlemen, I actually don't know their names, but very strong acting from both. You could see like quite a range of emotions throughout the whole film that I thought they played very nicely and I thoroughly enjoyed. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I could give it above 3 stars, purely because the ending was just like, it was like grating your hand on a cheese grater or the side of your head. Do you know what I mean? It was just, it felt like it just went on and on and on, and there was no release, and then it just sort of ended with something that just didn't feel very important. It really builds and builds and builds, and there's this element going in, and there's that Jenga block, and there's that Jenga block, and it's tilting this way, and it's tilting that way, and then it just doesn't really happen. It brings it together, but it sort of, it doesn't, it just sort of, that's, there's kind of no other way I could describe it. 3 stars, tops. Would I recommend you go and see it? Yes. I thought it was an interesting film. It's certainly an original film. I can't help but feel like it's probably trying to bank off to some degree the success of King Richard, and because I don't know how many other tennis films there are out there, quite frankly. I'm sure there's a few, but no, it was original. There was lots of elements in it that you could enjoy, but if you take the sexual element out of it, how much substance really is in that film? And if you're going to go in and come away and talk about anything and rave about it, I really think you need to talk about that. And to what, in my eyes, someone who doesn't use the social media platforms, what is pretty obviously that there's been a big push for it on, I can only assume, TikTok, just based on the demographic of the audience that I was in, who was in there. I can only assume that it must have blown up massively on TikTok because Zendaya, she's very pretty, and there's some slow motion of her hair moving or whatever. But I think, you know, it's going to get carried through on that, and it's probably big presence on social media. I think it's probably just going to sort of drag it through and earn it way more money than I think it deserves to earn. Anyway, yeah, that's my review. Get yourself to go and see it.